Pain is only bearable if we know it will end, not if we deny it exists. I do the unpleasant tasks before I do the pleasant ones. Try to do everything as soon as possible, and not at the last moment. This ensures that, when I am overburdened with work, I will not face the added pressure of knowing that something is still to be done. When a man finds that it is his destiny to suffer, his unique opportunity lies in the way he bears his burden. But there was no need to be ashamed of tears, for tears bore witness that a man had the greatest of courage, the courage to suffer. The last freedom is choosing your attitude. Man's inner strength may raise him above his outward fate. Man is not fully conditioned and determined, but rather determines himself whether he gives in to conditions or stands up to them. When a man cannot find meaning, he numbs himself with pleasure. A man's concern, even his despair, over the worthwhileness of life is an existential distress, but by no means a mental disease. In times of crisis, people reach for meaning. Meaning is strength. Our survival may depend on our seeking and finding it. Man can only find meaning for his existence in something outside himself. If there is meaning in life at all, then there must be meaning in suffering. Every human being has the freedom to change at any instant. Then I grasped the meaning of the greatest secret that human poetry and human thought and belief have to impart: the salvation of man is through love and in love. God is the partner of your most intimate soliloquies. The more one forgets one's own self, the more human the person becomes. The point is not what we expect from life, but rather what life expects from us. Each of us carries a unique spark of the divine, and each of us is also an inseparable part of the web of life. The quest for meaning is the key to mental health and human flourishing. This is the core of the human spirit. If we can find something to live for, if we can find some meaning to put at the center of our lives, even the worst kind of suffering becomes bearable. To suffer unnecessarily is masochistic rather than heroic. Humor was another of the soul's weapons in the fight for self-preservation. The attempt to develop a sense of humor and to see things in a humorous light is some kind of a trick learned while mastering the art of living. No man should judge unless he asks himself in absolute honesty whether in a similar situation he might not have done the same. Even when it is not fully attained, we become better by striving for a higher goal. Just as a small fire is extinguished by the storm, whereas a large fire is enhanced by it, likewise a weak faith is weakened by predicament and catastrophes, whereas a strong faith is strengthened by them. Man's main concern is not to gain pleasure or to avoid pain, but rather to see a meaning in his life. Love is the only way to grasp another human being in the innermost core of his personality. Life asks of every individual a contribution, and it is up to that individual to discover what it should be. You don't create your mission in life, you detect it. Life ultimately means taking the responsibility to find the right answer to its problems and to fulfill the tasks which it constantly sets for each individual. In some ways, suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning, such as the meaning of a sacrifice. Being tolerant does not mean that I share another one's belief, but it does mean that I acknowledge another one's right to believe, and obey, his own conscience. Our greatest freedom is the freedom to choose our attitude. Life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by lack of meaning and purpose. Forces beyond your control can take away everything you possess except one thing: your freedom to choose how you will respond to the situation. Success, like happiness, is the unexpected side effect of one's personal dedication to a cause greater than oneself. Faith is trust and ultimate meaning. There is nothing in the world, I venture to say, that would so effectively help one to survive even the worst conditions as the knowledge that there is a meaning in one's life. Ultimately, man should not ask what the meaning of his life is, but rather he must recognize that it is he who is asked. If there is a meaning in life at all, then there must be a meaning in suffering. Suffering is an ineradicable part of life, even as fate and death. Without suffering and death, human life cannot be complete. Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Challenging the meaning of life is the truest expression of the state of being human.